Hi there. Tonight we step into the shadowed lanes of a medieval village where the air hums with the scent of wood smoke and the faint rustle of kirtles brushing cobblestones as women whisper about betrothals under the church's looming spire. You're dodging a creaky cart, catching glimpses of girls clutching rosaries, their eyes wary of gossip that could stain their honor before a wedding vow. This is a world where virginity wasn't just personal. It was a currency, a sacred seal, woven into every marriage, manor, and sermon. Fair warning. You probably won't survive the prying neighbors, the church's stern gaze, or the occasional whiff of a latrine without a sharp wit and a quick step. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not just passing through, you're stepping into a society where a woman's virginity shaped her fate, from peasant huts to noble halls, a weight heavier than any dowry sack. Virginity was no private matter. It was public, policed by families, priests, and neighbors. A badge of honor tied to land, lineage, and salvation. Unlike Rome's more negotiable chastity we explored before. A mainstream fact sets the scene. By the 12th century, canon law, as outlined in Gratian's Decretum, declared virginity a prerequisite for honorable marriages, especially among the elite, ensuring clear paternity for inheritance, a far cry from Alina's carefree maypole dances. You're overhearing a mother, let's call her Marjorie, our market quipster, reborn, lecture her daughter, Alina, about guarding her maidenhead like a treasure, her voice sharp as a market knife. You'd probably trip on a cobble, muttering about needing a medieval privacy app, but Marjorie's words, like Flavia's Roman market clout, show virginity was a family's shield, not just a girl's burden. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villages held purity fairs, where girls wore white veils to signal chastity, parading before suitors like a medieval beauty pageant, minus the talent round. Picture Alina in a veil, tripping over it while dodging a suitor's stare, her blush as red as a fair's apples. You'd chuckle, imagining it's like a reality show with church approval, unlike Rome's sacred vestal rites, or those crocodile dung potions, thank goodness. Historians still argue whether virginity's weight empowered women or chained them, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it gave leverage in marriage deals like Marjorie's dowry haggles. Others think it trapped girls under scrutiny, unlike Joan's yellow hood defiance, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's nervous fidget with her rosary suggests she feels the pressure, a far cry from Edith's ivy-broached ease. You pause by a well, where women gossip about a betrothal, their voices low but cutting, weighing Alina's. Virtue like grain at market, as sharp as Ellen's Roman Sabura barbs. Virginity was a public script. Priests preached it, families guarded it, and suitors bet on it, unlike Beatrice's cloistered vows or Zara's foreign tales. The humor hits when a stray cat swipes Alina's veil, her chase turning the well into a comedy stage like Maud's churchyard tumble. It wasn't just nobles. Peasant girls like Cecici faced the same gaze, their honor as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers, though less bloody. You spot a carved cross on Marjorie's neck, a nod to the church's grip, but her wink at a passing baker, like Sybil's market allure, hints at life's spark beneath the rules, unlike Sabina's Roman divorce drama. The village darkens as Vespers bells toll, and you feel the weight of this world, where virginity was a woman's crown and chain, unlike Rome's bacchanalia revels. You're starting to see Alina's path, her steps shadowed by eyes and vows, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but earthier, a balance of duty and dreams. The torches flare, and you linger by the well, wondering how Alina navigates this maze of honor, and what truths medieval women hid behind their veils in the firelit, star-streaked night. You're standing in the dim chill of a medieval village church, the air heavy with the scent of incense and the faint creak of pews as women in wimples kneel, their rosaries clicking like a nervous heartbeat. Stained glass casts jewel-toned shadows, and a priest's voice drones from the altar, preaching purity as a path to heaven, his words wrapping you in a web of divine expectation. You're not here for a quick confession. You're uncovering the Church's iron grip on chastity, where medieval religious doctrine shaped how virginity was revered, feared, and policed, a sacred rule that shadowed every woman's step. The village's evening hush seeps through the stone walls, and you're trying not to trip on a prayer rug while you soak in this holy pressure, hoping you don't knock over a candlestick and spark a sermon about clumsiness. The medieval church wasn't just a spiritual guide, it was virginity's chief architect, casting it as a divine mandate that could save or damn souls, unlike Rome's looser Venus worship we glimpsed before. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, theological texts, like those of Thomas Aquinas, declared virginity a state of moral perfection, equating it with the Virgin Mary's sanctity, with sermons urging women to guard it for marriage, or consecrate it to God, as seen in diocesan records. You're picturing Alina, our veil-tripping maiden, whispering her daily prayers to Mary, her fingers tight on her rosary, as Marjorie nods approvingly from the pew beside her. You'd probably fumble the beads, muttering about needing a medieval mindfulness app, but Alina's devotion, like Marjorie's market vigilance over her daughter's honor, shows the Church's doctrine wasn't abstract. It was a daily vow, heavier than Alina's maypole ribbons or Gillian's festive jests. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some priests handed out blessed hairnets to girls, believing they bound sinful thoughts that might tempt them from chastity, a headgear charm weirder than Alina's fennel-sprigged fair kirtle. Picture Alina donning one, only for it to slip over her eyes mid-prayer, turning her into a holy pirate. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval chastity helmet gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred amulets, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether the Church's purity doctrine empowered women or shackled them, like Eleanor's noble leverage. Some say it offered spiritual prestige, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think it fueled fear, trapping women under scrutiny stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales. You're not sure, but Alina's hunched shoulders under her hairnet suggest she's feeling the sermon's weight, a far cry from Edith's ivy-broached banter. You move toward a side chapel, where a statue of the Virgin Mary glows, her serene face a model every woman, from Alina to Sybil, was urged to mirror. Her purity a standard preached in every homily, unlike Rome's bacchanalia revels. The humor hits when you overhear a girl whisper about her hairnet itching like a devil's prank, slipping a grumble into her prayers like Maud's churchyard tumble. The Church didn't just preach, it policed, urging confessions of stray thoughts, as we saw with Marjorie's, betrothal warnings tying virginity to salvation, not just marriage beds like Hilda's childbirth prayers. You notice a worn prayer book, its pages open to St. Agnes, patron of chastity, a reminder of the stakes, yet a woman's sidelong glance at a passing chorister, like Cecily's market spark, hints at human warmth beneath the doctrine, unlike Sabina's Roman divorce nerve. The chapel's candles flicker, and you feel the church's doctrine pressing down. Its purity rules a lens through which every woman's worth was judged, unlike Alina's harvest festival freedom. You're starting to see Alina's world, her prayers a shield against a heaven that demanded spotless virtue, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but sharper, a balance of fear and faith. The Vespers bell tolls, and you linger by the statue, wondering how Alina holds her heart under Mary's gaze, and what secrets medieval women kept behind their rosaries in the incense-wreathed, star-streaked night. You're slipping through the heavy velvet curtains of a medieval noblewoman's solar, the air rich with the scent of rosewater and the soft rustle of silk gowns brushing polished oak floors. Candlelight flickers on tapestries of unicorns and knights, and a young bride-to-be sits stiffly, her mother murmuring about the wedding contract, her eyes darting like a deer before a hunt. You're not here to fluff the cushions. You're examining the towering stakes of virginity for noble brides, where chastity was a linchpin of elite marriages tying land, power, and honor in a world of dynastic chess. The village's evening hum fades beyond the manor's stone walls, and you're trying not to knock over a silver goblet while you soak in this high-stakes drama, hoping you don't trip on a rug and crash the noble mood. For noble women, virginity wasn't just a virtue, it was a contract clause, a guarantee of lineage that could make or break empires, unlike the village betrothals we saw with Alina's veil mishaps. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 12th century, marriage treaties, like those of the Plantagenet dynasty, required noble brides to be virgins to ensure legitimate heirs, with dowries and alliances hinging on their chastity, as noted in chronicles, like Orderic Vitalis. You're picturing Eleanor, our hawking noble reborn, now a bride, her velvet kirtle stiff as her mother. Lady Matilda drills her on preserving her honour for a lord's bed, her voice sharp as a falcon's cry. You'd probably fumble a curtsy, muttering about needing a medieval prenup app, but Eleanor's posture, like Marjorie's vigilance over Alina's maidenhead, shows virginity was a noblewoman's currency, heavier than Gillian's festive ribbons, or Rome's subura trades. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some noble brides wore sapphire rings before betrothals, believed to turn cloudy if their chastity wavered, a medieval lie detector, flashier than Alina's blessed hairnet. Picture Eleanor slipping one on, praying it stays blue, only for it to slip off during a nervous fidget, clinking like a dropped coin. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a blingy purity test gone rogue, unlike Rome's Vestal flame checks, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank goodness. Historians still argue whether virginity's role in elite marriages empowered noble women or caged them, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Some say it gave leverage in negotiations, like Marjorie's dowry deals. Others think it bound them to scrutiny, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers we heard looming. You're not sure, but Eleanor's tight grip on her goblet suggests she's braced for the sapphire's verdict, unlike Edith's ivy-broached ease. You move closer to the Solar's hearth, where Matilda unfurls a parchment listing Eleanor's dowry, land, gold, and her unblemished virtue, her words as cold as the church's purity sermons, yet laced with pride, like Ellen's Roman subura barbs, but grander. The humour hits when a maid trips, spilling rosewater, her slippery sin quip earning a rare smirk from Matilda, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Virginity wasn't just personal, it sealed alliances, unlike Alina's village vows or Ceces's market spark, ensuring heirs free of rival claims, a concern as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. You notice a small Virgin Mary statue, its gaze stern, echoing the church's doctrine from the chapel. Yet Eleanor's sidelong glance at a troubadour's lute, like Sybil's fairground allure, hints at a heart stirring beneath the contract. Unlike Sabina's Roman divorce drama, the Solar's candles dim, and you feel the weight of Eleanor's stakes, her virginity a noblewoman's shield and chain, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her world, her every step, watched by kin and court like Isabel's. Sanctity vow but gilded, a balance of duty and desire. The fire's glow fades and you linger by the tapestry, wondering how Eleanor bears the sapphire's shine and what truths noble brides hid behind their veils in the rose-scented, star-streaked medieval night. You're huddled in a dimly lit chamber off a medieval manor's hall, the air heavy with the scent of dried lavender and the faint creak of a wooden screen shielding a nervous bride-to-be from prying eyes. A midwife's low murmur cuts through the tension, her hands hidden behind the screen, as a noble mother paces, her velvet kirtles swishing like a storm. You're not here to fetch a candle, you're investigating the murky myths of physical inspections for virginity, where whispers of bodily checks swirled around medieval brides, a practice steeped in rumor more than reality, yet tied to the high stakes we saw in Eleanor's Solar. The village's evening hum fades beyond the stone walls, and you're trying not to knock over a clay basin while you unravel this uneasy mystery, hoping you don't sneeze and break the room's fragile hush. Physical inspections for virginity are among the most debated practices in medieval history, often exaggerated in modern tales but rarely documented, unlike the church's purity sermons we heard in the chapel. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, legal and medical texts, like the Trotula, suggest midwives occasionally examine noble brides to confirm chastity, but such checks were rare, typically reserved for disputed marriage contracts, or annulment cases as noted in ecclesiastical court records. You're picturing Eleanor, our noble bride, behind the screen, her breath shallow as the midwife, Agnes, probes gently. Her mother Matilda, watching like a hawk for signs of honor. You'd probably trip on the rushes muttering about needing a medieval hippe form, but Agnes's work, like Marjorie's vigilance over Alina's maidenhead, shows inspections were less about science and more about trust, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some midwives used a virgin's mirror, a polished metal disc, believing it reflected a maiden's purity in its shine, a mystical test as odd as Eleanor's sapphire ring. Picture Agnes holding one up, only for it to fog from Eleanor's nervous huff, prompting a mock, cloudy virtue jest. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval magic 8-ball gone rogue, unlike Rome's Vestal flame rites, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether physical checks were common or largely mythical, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they were exceptional, used only in legal disputes. Others think folklore amplified their frequency, fueled by the church's St. Anne prayers and noble stakes we saw with Matilda, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance. You're not sure, but Eleanor's clenched fists behind the screen suggest she's dreading the mirror's verdict, unlike Edith's ivy-broached ease. You edge closer to the screen, where Agnes's hands move with practiced care, her voice soothing, but firm, like a market vendor sealing a deal, echoing Ellen's Roman Subura sharpness, but softer. The humor hits when a maid drops a cloth, her slippery fingers quip, easing the tension, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Inspections weren't routine. Most brides, like Alina or Cecilie, faced verbal oaths or family trust, not bodily probes, unlike Hilda's childbirth trials. When they happened, they were private, shrouded in secrecy, Not public, like Marjorie's Purity Fair parades, with results whispered to kin, not shouted like Sybil's market gossip. You notice a small Virgin Mary icon on a table, its gaze stern, tying to the church's purity doctrine from the chapel. Yet Matilda's anxious glance at the screen, like Zara's foreign curiosity, hints at human doubt beneath the ritual, unlike Sabina's Roman divorce nerve. The chamber's candles dim, and you feel the myth's weight, these inspections more legend than practice, yet real enough to haunt Eleanor's wedding eve, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her fear, her body a ledger. For noble honor, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but fleshier, a balance of trust and dread. The fire's glow fades, and you linger by the basin wondering how Eleanor faces Agnes's mirror, and what truths medieval brides buried behind screens, in the lavender-scented, star-streaked night. You're perched on a creaky bench in a medieval peasant's cottage, the air thick with the scent of simmering pottage and the faint must of straw strewn across the dirt floor. A fire crackles, casting shadows on mud-plastered walls where a young woman fidgets with her kirtle, her parents haggling with a suitor's kin over a betrothal, their voices sharp as they weigh her worth. You're not here to stir the pot. You're navigating the gritty expectations of virginity for peasant betrothals, where chastity was a practical asset, less gilded than Eleanor's noble stakes, but no less vital in a village world of survival and honor. The village's evening hum drifts through the shuttered window, and you're trying not to knock over a clay mug while you soak in this tense bargain, hoping you don't sneeze and derail the deal. For peasant women, virginity was a family's bargaining chip, ensuring a marriage that could secure a cow or a plot, unlike the dynastic treaties we saw in Eleanor's Solar or Rome's elite contracts. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, manorial court rolls like those from Hales show peasant marriages often hinged on a bride's chastity, with families expecting verbal assurances or community trust to confirm her unblemished status, as disputes over broken betrothals reveal. You're picturing Alina, our veil-tripping village girl, now betrothed to a blacksmith, Thomas, her mother, Marjorie, boasting of her pure heart to the suitor's kin, her tone as firm as a market stall pitch. You'd probably spill your ale muttering about needing a medieval trust app. But Marjorie's pride, like Matilda's dowry parchment, ties Alina's virginity to the family's future, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Gillian's festive ribbons. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some peasant brides carried a sprig of myrtle in their betrothal wreath, believed to bloom only for maidens, a floral lie detector, humbler than Eleanor's sapphire ring. Picture Alina tucking one in, only for a petal to fall mid-vow, sparking a mock, wilted honor jest from Thomas. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval purity sticker gone rogue, unlike Rome's Vestal flame checks, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether virginity's role in peasant betrothals was rigid or flexible, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Some say it was a strict expectation, like Marjorie's Purity Fair parades. Others think villages, unlike noble courts, often trusted oaths over proof, looser than Joan's Yellow Hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers hovering. You're not sure, but Alina's flushed cheeks under her myrtle suggest she's feeling the village's gaze, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You shift closer to the hearth, where Thomas's kin nod at Marjorie's assurances, their eyes scanning Alina like a market ox, their trust in her chastity as practical as a plough, echoing Ellen's Roman subura, sharpness but homelier. The humour hits when a stray dog snatches a bread crust. It's betrothal feast, scamper, lightening the mood, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Unlike Eleanor's physical inspections by midwives like Agnes, peasant virginity was rarely checked. Bodily, families relied on reputation like Marjorie's boasts, or gossip, sharper than Sybil's fairground quips. A bride's honour, like Hilda's childbirth prayers, was a community asset, ensuring a marriage free of shame, unlike Ceces's, Market Spark, or Sabina's Roman divorce drama. You notice a small St. Agnes charm on Alina's neck, tying to the church's purity doctrine from the chapel, yet her shy glance at Thomas, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at warmth beneath the scrutiny, unlike Rome's bacchanalia revels. The cottage's fire dims, and you feel the weight of peasant expectations, virginity a practical seal for Alina's betrothal, unlike noble treaties or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her world, her honour, a fragile thread in a village web, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but earthier, a balance of trust and survival. The shutters rattle and you linger by the hearth, wondering how Alina bears the myrtle's bloom, and what truths peasant brides hid behind their wreaths in the pottage-scented, star-streaked medieval night. You're crouched in the smoky warmth of a medieval midwife's cottage, the air thick with the scent of simmering herbs and the faint tang of lye soap bubbling in a cauldron. Shelves sag under jars of chamomile and rue, and a low bench holds a nervous girl, her kirtle clutched tight as the midwife murmurs assurances, her hands steady with secrets older than the village spire. You're not here to fetch a poultice, you're revealing the midwife's secret role in assessing virginity, where these women wielded quiet power in a world obsessed with chastity, their knowledge a shadow to the noble inspections we saw with Eleanor and the peasant oaths of Alina's betrothal. The village's nighttime hum seeps through the wattle walls, and you're trying not to knock over a mortar while you unravel this hushed craft, hoping you don't blurt a question and break the delicate trust. Midwives in medieval times were more than birth attendants. They were gatekeepers of women's honour, their expertise sometimes called upon to verify chastity, unlike the church's purity sermons or Marjorie's village boasts. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, ecclesiastical court records, like those from the Diocese of York, show midwives occasionally testifying in marriage disputes, their assessments of virginity often through discreet inquiries, or rare physical checks, carrying weight in annulment cases or betrothal conflicts. You're picturing Agnes, our midwife from Eleanor's inspection, now with Alina, her peasant betrothed, asking gentle questions about her maiden state, while Marjorie hovers, her eyes sharp as a market hawk. You'd probably trip on a rush mat muttering about needing a medieval HR manual, but Agnes's calm, like Marjorie's dowry vigilance, ties her role to village trust, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some midwives used a moonwater rinse, water blessed under a full moon, to wash their hands before assessments, believing it revealed truth like a divine spotlight, weirder than Alina's myrtle wreath. Picture Agnes splashing it, only for a drop to hit Alina's nose, sparking a mock lunar sneeze jest. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval truth serum gone soggy, unlike Rome's sacred mirrors, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether midwives' roles in virginity checks were routine or exceptional, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they were trusted experts, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think their involvement was rare, limited to disputes, unlike Joan's Yellow Hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure But Alina's tense nod to Agnes's questions suggests she trusts the midwife's word, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the bench, where Agnes's hands rest on a folded cloth, her voice low as she asks about Alina's cycles, her discretion a shield against Marjorie's glare, echoing Ellen's Roman Sabura, cunning but kinder. The humour hits when a cat leaps onto a shelf, knocking a jar of thyme, its herbal ambush easing the mood, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Midwives like Agnes rarely probed physically, unlike Eleanor's noble checks. They relied on talk, observation, or reputation, like Marjorie's boasts at Alina's betrothal, a trust as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Their role was secret, whispered in cottages, not preached like Sybil's market gossip or the church's purity doctrine. From the chapel, you notice a small St. Margaret charm by the cauldron, tying to the church's oversight. Yet Agnes's warm glance at Alina, like Cecily's market spark, hints at compassion beneath the task, unlike Sabina's Roman divorce nerve. The cottage's fire dims, and you feel the midwives' quiet power, their secret role, a thread in the web of Virginity's weight, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see Alina's relief, her honour in Agnes's hands, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but humbler, a balance of trust and fear. The shutters rattle and you linger by the hearth, wondering how Agnes holds the village's secrets, and what truths midwives guarded in the herb-scented, star-streaked medieval night. You're standing in the flickering glow of a medieval village church porch, the air cool with the scent of damp stone and the faint whiff of wax from candles burning inside. A small crowd gathers, their cloaks rustling, as a young woman steps forward, her kirtle neat but her hands trembling, ready to swear an oath of purity before kin and priest. You're not here to light a taper. You're witnessing the oath-swearing rituals where medieval women pledged their virginity, their solemn words a public vow to prove chastity, a practice more common than the midwives' secret checks we saw with Agnes, or the noble inspections of Eleanor. The village's evening hum softens beyond the churchyard, and you're trying not to trip on a loose cobble while you soak in this tense ceremony, hoping you don't cough and disrupt the sacred hush. Oath-swearing was a medieval cornerstone for verifying virginity, especially among commoners, where words carried the weight of honor, unlike the church's lofty purity doctrine or Matilda's dynastic scrutiny. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, ecclesiastical records like those from the Diocese of Canterbury show women swearing oaths of chastity before marriage or in legal disputes, their pledges before God and witnesses binding families, and courts as seen in betrothal agreements. You're picturing Alina, our betrothed peasant girl, standing before the priest, her voice steady as she swears by St. Agnes to be pure in body and heart, Marjorie's eyes boring into her like a market vendor's scale. You'd probably stammer your own oath, muttering about needing a medieval script app, but Alina's vow, like Marjorie's boasts at her betrothal, ties her virginity to village trust, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia. Revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women held a blessed candle during oaths, believing its flame would flicker if they lied, a divine snitch brighter than Alina's myrtle wreath. Picture Alina gripping one, only for a draught to wobble the flame, sparking a mock, heavenly hiccup from a cousin. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval polygraph gone gusty, unlike Rome's sacred flame rites, but not those crocodile dung in potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether oath-swearing was a reliable check or a performative ritual, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it empowered women to speak their truth, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think it was a formality, easily swayed by kin pressure, unlike Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's tight grip on the candle suggests she's bracing for the flame's judgment, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the porch, where the priest nods gravely, his Latin blessing await on Alina's words, like Agnes's discreet questions in the midwife's cottage, but public, open to the crowd's murmurs, echoing Ellen's Roman Sabura barbs, but holier. The humour hits when a boy sneezes his holy blast, earning a glare from Marjorie, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Oaths were common for peasants like Alina or Cecilie, unlike Eleanor's rare inspections, relying on faith and fear of gods, a wrath, not probes, a trust as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike noble contracts, these vows were village theatre, binding kin like Marjorie's betrothal deals, not sealed in gold like Sybil's market trades or Sabina's Roman divorce. Nerve. You notice a small St. Agnes icon by the porch, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet Alina's quick glance at Thomas, her blacksmith betrothed, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at hope beneath the vow, unlike Rome's Subura whispers. The churchyard's candles dim, and you feel the oath's gravity. Alina's words a fragile bridge over the village's watchful eyes, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her courage, her purity sworn before God and gossip, like Isabel's sanctity vow but plainer, a balance of faith and fear. The Vespers bell tolls, and you linger by the porch, wondering how Alina holds her candles steady, and what truths peasant women spoke in the wax-lit, star-streaked medieval night. You're weaving through the bustling heart of a medieval village market, the air sharp with the scent of crushed mint and the soft clink of bronze pins as women in kirtles barter for ribbons and cloth, their fingers brushing belts and rings that gleam with unspoken meaning. Stall-holders hawk wares, and a young woman adjusts her girdle, her eyes wary of the crowd's gaze, each accessory a silent claim to her virtue. You're not here to buy a buckle, you're decoding the chastity symbols of belts, rings and garments, where medieval women wore their virginity like a badge, a public display more visible than Alina's oath-swearing or Eleanor's veiled inspections. The village's midday hum thrums around you, and you're trying not to trip over a stray basket while you unravel these coded adornments, hoping you don't misread a symbol and spark a market whisper. Chastity symbols were medieval women's visual language, proclaiming purity to kin and suitors, unlike the church's abstract sermons or Agnes's discreet midwife assessments. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, sumptuary laws and household inventories, like those from the Paston family, show women wearing chastity belts, white veils, or purity rings to signal virginity, especially before betrothals, as noted in marriage contracts. You're eyeing Alina, our oath-swearing peasant, her kirtle cinched with a woven girdle, its silver clasp etched with a lily, her mother, Marjorie, boasting it, locks her honour, her voice as proud as at Alina's betrothal. You'd probably fumble a clasp, muttering about needing a medieval fashion app, but Alina's girdle, like Eleanor's sapphire ring, marks her as untouched, a far cry from Alina's maypole ribbons or Rome's bacchanalia garlands. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women wore maiden's knots, braided ribbons tied to belts that supposedly unraveled if their chastity faltered, a DIY detector flimsier than Alina's blessed candle. Picture Alina tying one only for a breeze to loosen it, sparking a mock virtue's escape from a vendor. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval chastity app, crashing, unlike Rome's sacred amulets, but not those crocodile dung potions. Thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these symbols were empowering or oppressive, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they gave women agency to display virtue, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think they invited scrutiny, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign bells, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's careful adjustment of her clasp suggests she's mindful of the market's eyes, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You pause by a stall where women like Marjorie finger a white veil, its hem embroidered with doves, a quip about a rival's tarnished ring, as sharp as Ellen's Roman Subura barbs, her own lily pendant gleaming. The humour hits when a girl, Maud perhaps, tries a belt too big, its chaste clank drawing giggles like her churchyard tumble. Symbols weren't just for peasants. Noblewomen like Eleanor wore jewelled girdles at court, their chastity a dynastic banner, unlike Alina's myrtle wreath or Cecily's market spark, tying to the church's purity doctrine from the chapel. Unlike Agnes's secret probes or Alina's public oaths, these adornments were daily, worn like Hilda's childbirth. Charms, a constant claim against gossip, sharper than Sybil's fairground quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve. You notice a St. Agnes charm on a vendor's neck, echoing the church's oversight, yet Alina's shy glance at Thomas, her betrothed, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at warmth beneath the symbols, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The market's din softens as the sun dips, and Alina adjusts her girdle, its lily clasp catching the light. Her step lighter, despite Marjorie's watchful nod, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs, you're starting to see her world, her chastity worn like armour in a village of eyes, like Isabel's sanctity vow but humbler, a balance of pride and pressure. The church bell tolls, and you linger by the stall, wondering how Alina carries her maiden's knot and what truths medieval women wove into their belts in the mint-scented, star-streaked medieval day. You're hunched over a scarred oak table in a medieval healer's dim study, the air thick with the scent of musty parchment and the sharp tang of ink drying on a quill's nib. Candlelight flickers across a yellowed manuscript, its Latin scrawl, detailing the mysteries of the female body, as a learned woman traces lines with a steady finger, her voice low with caution. You're not here to mix a tonic. You're probing the medical text's claims about virginity, where medieval scholars spun theories blending science, myth, and faith to define chastity, a knowledge that shaped the inspections we saw with Eleanor and the oaths Alina swore. The village's nighttime hum fades beyond the shuttered window, and you're trying not to smudge a page while you unravel these ancient ideas, hoping you don't misread a word and spark a scholarly smirk. Medieval medical texts were a curious mix of observation and fantasy, offering theories on virginity that guided midwives like Agnes and fueled the church's purity obsession, unlike Rome's practical marriage contracts. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, texts like the Trotula, attributed to a Salerno school, describe virginity as a physical state marked by an intact hymen, with signs like a high voice or modest gait as proof, influencing marriage disputes as noted in ecclesiastical records. You're picturing Alina, our girdle-wearing betrothed, imagined through these texts, her soft voice cited by Marjorie as a maiden's mark to Thomas's kin, her mother's nod as firm as a market deal. You'd probably mispronounce Hymenaeus, muttering about needing a medieval biology app. But Marjorie's claim, like Matilda's sapphire ring vigilance, ties Alina's chastity to scholarly law, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances, or Rome's bacchanalia, revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some texts claimed virgins' urine stayed clear when boiled, a bizarre test midwives rarely used but gossiped about, odder than Alina's maiden's knot ribbon. Picture Agnes boiling a sample, only for it to bubble over, sparking a mock cloudy virtue jest from a helper. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval lab gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred flame rites, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these medical theories were practical or speculative, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they informed rare checks, like Eleanor's inspections. Others think they were academic, rarely applied, unlike Joan's Yellow Hood Defiance or Zara's Foreign Tales, with the Church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's shy blush at Marjorie's voice boast suggests she's caught in these theories' web, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You lean closer to the manuscript, where the healer, Sister Clare, points to a passage on maidenly gait, her voice wary of the Church's oversight, like Agnes's discreet probes in the midwife's cottage, but learned, steeped in Latin, echoing Ellen's Roman Subura. Cunning, but quieter. The humour hits when a cat swipes a quill, its scholarly theft, scattering ink like a novice's blot, like Maud's churchyard tumble. These texts weren't just for elites. Village midwives like Agnes used their ideas, if loosely, to assess girls like Alina or Cecilie, unlike Hilda's childbirth trials, guiding betrothals like Marjorie's myrtle wreath vows, not noble contracts. Like Eleanor's, unlike Alina's public oaths or Eleanor's midwife checks, medical theories were background, shaping perceptions more than practice, like Sybil's market quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve. You notice a small St. Cosmas icon by the table, tying to the Church's purity doctrine. Yet Clare's gentle glance at the text, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at skepticism beneath the law, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The study's candles dim, and you feel the weight of these theories, their claims on virginity, a blend of faith and folly, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see Alina's world, her body read through a scholar's lens, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but weirder, a balance of trust and myth. The shutters creak and you linger by the table, wondering how Clare navigates these texts' truths and what medieval women thought of their virginity in the ink-scented, star-streaked night. You're seated in the cramped warmth of a medieval peasant's cottage, the air heavy with the scent of damp wool and the faint crackle of a hearth fire casting shadows on rough-hewn beams. Around a worn table, family members lean close, their faces taut as they question a young woman about her conduct, their voices low but piercing, like the wind rattling the shutters. You're not here to peel turnips. You're facing the intense pressures of family honor, where medieval kin scrutinized a woman's chastity to protect their reputation, a weight that shaped Alina's betrothal oaths and Eleanor's noble inspections more than medical texts' claims. The village's nighttime hum fades beyond the wattle walls, and you're trying not to knock over a clay jug while you soak in this familial inquisition, hoping you don't shift awkwardly and draw their sharp gazes. Family honor in medieval times was a fragile shield, with a woman's virginity its cornerstone, tying kin to social standing, unlike the Church's abstract purity doctrine or the Trotula's theories we probed. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, manorial court rolls like those from Wakefield show families policing daughters' chastity to secure marriages or avoid shame, with disputes over defiled brides leading to fines or broken betrothals, as seen in legal records. You're picturing Alina, our lily-girdled betrothed, under Marjorie's glare, her mother grilling her about a late-night walk with Thomas, her tone as fierce as a market haggle. You'd probably spill the jug, muttering about needing a medieval family therapy app, but Marjorie's scrutiny, like Matilda's dowry oversight with Eleanor, binds Alina's virginity to the family's name, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some families hung a virtue bell on a daughter's bed frame, believing its chime warded off nighttime mischief, a clanky alarm weirder than Alina's maiden's knot ribbon. Picture Marjorie installing one, only for it to jingle when a cat leaps up, sparking a mock midnight suitor panic. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval nanny cam gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred amulets, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether family pressures empowered women or stifled them, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they gave kin leverage in marriage deals, like Marjorie's betrothal boasts. Others think they trapped girls under suspicion, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's downcast eyes under Marjorie's questions suggest she's buckling under the family's watch, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the table where Alina's father, John, adds his gruff doubts, his voice probing her honest walks, like Agnes's discreet midwife inquiries but louder, echoing Ellen's Roman Sabura barbs but homelier. The humour hits when a younger brother pipes up, asking if Thomas stole a kiss, his courtly spy quip, earning a swat from Marjorie, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Family scrutiny wasn't just for peasants. Noble kin like Matilda's. Court watched Eleanor's every step, unlike Alina's public oaths or Cecilia's market spark, ensuring honour as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike the Trotula's theories or Eleanor's inspections, these pressures were daily, a kin's gaze sharper than Sybil's fairground gossip, or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, binding families like Marjorie's myrtle wreath vows. You notice a small St. Agnes charm on Alina's wrist, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet her quick glance at the door, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at a heart yearning beyond the table, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The cottages, fire dims, and you feel the crush of family honour. Alina's chastity a chain linking kin to village eyes, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her strain, her virtue a family's flag, like Isabel's sanctity vow but plainer, a balance of loyalty and longing. The shutters creak, and you linger by the hearth, wondering how Alina faces Marjorie's glare, and what truths medieval women hid from their kin in the wool-scented, star-streaked night. You're gathered in the sun-dappled yard of a medieval village church, the air alive with the scent of fresh straw strewn underfoot, and the soft jingle of bells tied to a bride-to-be's kirtle. Villagers cluster around a wooden trestle draped in linen, where a priest blesses a betrothal contract, his voice mingling with the murmur of kin exchanging nods and glances. You're not here to toss barley. You're attending the betrothal ceremonies where medieval women's virginity was ritually emphasized, their purity celebrated and scrutinized in public vows, a spectacle louder than Alina's family interrogations or Eleanor's discreet inspections. The village's midday hum buzzes beyond the churchyard, and you're trying not to trip on a stray garland while you soak in this festive yet tense ritual, hoping you don't clap at the wrong moment and draw priestly frown. Betrothal ceremonies were medieval showcases where a woman's chastity was a centerpiece, binding families like the honor pressures we saw with Marjorie. Unlike the Trotula's abstract theories, a mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, church records like those from the Diocese of Lincoln describe betrothal rites where brides publicly affirmed their virginity, often with symbolic gifts or blessings, as seen in parish registers, ensuring marriage legitimacy. You're picturing Alina, our myrtle-wreathed betrothed, standing beside Thomas, her blacksmith, her kirtle, adorned with a white veil as Marjorie beams, proclaiming her spotless virtue to the crowd. You'd probably fumble the garland toss, muttering about needing a medieval wedding planner app, but Alina's veil, like Eleanor's chastity belt, signals her purity, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some betrothals included a purity posy, a bouquet of lilies handed to the bride, believed to wilt if her chastity was false, a floral snitch fancier than Alina's virtue bell. Picture Alina clutching hers, only for a bee to land on it, sparking a mock, blooming doubt from Thomas's kin. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval bouquet with a lie detector, unlike Rome's sacred wreaths, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these rituals were empowering or performative, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they honored women's virtue, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think they staged scrutiny, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's stiff smile under her veil suggests she's feeling the crowd's eyes, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the trestle, where the priest sprinkles holy water, his blessing tying Alina's purity to God's favor, like Agnes's moon-water rinse but public, echoing Ellen's Roman Subura sharpness but holier. The humor hits when a child throws barley too hard. It's grain assault pelting Marjorie, like Maud's churchyard tumble. These ceremonies weren't just for peasants. Noblewomen like Eleanor had grander versions at court, unlike Alina's church porch oaths, or Cecilia's market spark, with virginity, a dynastic seal as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's family grillings or Eleanor's inspections, betrothals were theatre, with veils and posies louder than Sybil's market gossip or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, binding kin like Marjorie's myrtle wreath vows. You notice a St. Agnes icon by the priest, tying to the church's purity doctrine. Yet Alina's quick glance at Thomas, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at love beneath the ritual, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The churchyard's bells ring, and you feel the ritual's weight. Alina's virginity, a public vow woven into the village's fabric, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her poise, her purity, a performance for kin and God, like Isabel's sanctity vow but louder, a balance of pride and pressure. The sun dips, and you linger by the trestle, wondering how Alina holds her posy steady, and what truths medieval brides veiled in the straw-scented, star-streaked medieval day. You're lingering by a weathered stone well in a medieval village square, the air sharp with the scent of damp earth and the faint clatter of buckets as women in kirtles draw water, their voices low but cutting like knives through the morning mist. Their whispers swirl, dissecting a young woman's late-night walk, each word a dart aimed at her purity, their eyes darting like hawks on a hunt. You're not here to haul a pail. You're hearing the damaging whispers of gossip, where medieval rumors questioned a woman's virginity, a force as potent as Alina's betrothal oaths or Eleanor's noble inspections, threatening honor in a world of watchful eyes. The village's morning hum buzzes around you, and you're trying not to trip over a cobble while you soak in this stinging chatter, hoping you don't catch a stray glance and get roped into the rumor mill. Gossip in medieval villages was a social blade slicing through reputations with whispers about chastity, amplifying the family pressures we saw with Marjorie or the church's purity doctrine. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 14th century, manorial court rolls like those from Ramsey Abbey show women facing slander suits over rumoured unchaste behaviour, with gossip about lost virginity sparking fines or public penance, as noted in legal disputes. You're picturing Alina, our lily-veiled betrothed, the target of murmurs about a moonlit stroll with Thomas, her blacksmith, Marjorie's face paling as a neighbour. Ellen hisses about tarnished honour by the well. You'd probably drop your bucket, muttering about needing a medieval mute button, but Ellen's whisper, like Matilda's scrutiny over Eleanor, cuts deep, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some gossips left shame mark, chalked doves with broken wings, on a woman's door to hint at lost purity, a graffiti jab nastier than Alina's purity posy. Picture Ellen sneaking one, only for rain to smear it, sparking a mock tears of guilt quip from a passerby. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval tweet gone soggy, unlike Rome's public graffiti, but not those crocodile dung potions. Thank the saints. Historians still argue whether gossip was a community regulator or a gendered weapon, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it enforced norms, like Marjorie's betrothal boasts. Others think it unfairly targeted women stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's hunched shoulders as she nears the well suggest she's bracing for Ellen's barbs, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the well, where Ellen's voice drops, her tale of Alina's midnight wander, laced with venom, like Agnes's discreet midwife probes, but public, echoing the Roman Subura's sharp tongues, but homelier. The humour hits when a girl, Maud perhaps, spills her water, her gossip splash, dousing Ellen's kirtle like her churchyard tumble. Gossip wasn't just for peasants. Noble women like Eleanor faced courtly whispers, unlike Alina's church porch vows or Cecilia's market spark, with rumours threatening dowries as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's family grillings or the Trotula's theories, gossip was unchecked, spreading like Sybil's fairground quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, shattering trust faster than Eleanor's inspections. You notice a St. Agnes charm on Ellen's neck, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet her sly glance at Alina, like Maud's orchard chatter, revels in the scandal, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The well's ripple softens as the women disperse, and you feel gossip sting. Alina's virginity, a fragile thread in a village of tongues, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her dread, her honour, fraying under Ellen's whispers, like Isabel's sanctity vow but raw, a balance of shame and defiance. The church bell tolls, and you linger by the well, wondering how Alina faces these rumours, and what truths medieval women shielded from gossip in the mist-wreathed, star-streaked medieval day. You're standing in the serene cool of a medieval convent's chapter house, the air laced with the scent of beeswax candles and the faint rustle of parchment as nuns in grey habits gather, their faces calm yet solemn under starched wimples. A novice kneels before an abbess, her hands clasped, as a soft chant echoes off stone walls, marking a vow that binds her to eternal chastity. You're not here to polish a reliquary, You're exploring the symbolic virginity checks of convent vows, where medieval nuns' purity was ritually affirmed, a spiritual counterpart to Alina's village gossip trials or Eleanor's noble inspections, rooted in divine devotion. The village's morning hush seeps through a cloister window, and you're trying not to scuff the flagstones while you soak in this sacred ritual, hoping you don't sneeze and shatter the holy quiet. Convent vows were medieval women's ultimate pledge of virginity, a spiritual contract where chastity was both assumed and celebrated. Unlike the secular pressures of Marjorie's kin or the Trotula's theories, a mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, monastic rules like those of the Benedictine order required nuns to vow perpetual chastity upon entering convents, with symbolic rituals, veiling, ring-giving, affirming their virgin bride status to Christ, as noted in hagiographies like the Life of Saint Clare. You're picturing Alina, reimagined as a novice, kneeling before Abbess Clare, her white veil a sign of purity, her voice trembling as she swears to remain unspotted. For God, Marjorie's proud nod replaced by the abbess's serene approval. You'd probably trip on a prayer stool muttering about needing a medieval vow app, but Alina's veil, like Eleanor's chastity belt, seals her virginity, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some convents gave novices a bridal crown of myrtle, believed to glow faintly if their heart strayed, a divine bling weirder than Alina's shame-marked gossip. Picture Alina donning hers only for a breeze, to tilt it, sparking a mock heavenly tilt from a sister. You chuckle, imagining it's a medieval halo with a glitch, unlike Rome's sacred amulets, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these vows were true checks or symbolic, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they affirmed spiritual purity, like Beatrice's cloistered bonds. Others think they assumed chastity, rarely tested, unlike Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the Church's St. Anne prayers ever present. You're not sure, but Alina's steady vow under her crown suggests she's embracing the divine gaze, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the altar, where Clare places a silver ring on Alina's finger, her chant tying her to Christ's eternal bride, like Agnes's midwife discretion, but divine, echoing Ellen's Roman Subura sharpness, but softer. The humor hits when a novice drops her prayer book, its holy thud earning a suppressed giggle, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Unlike Alina's village oaths or Eleanor's inspections, convent vows were symbolic, not physical, a public act like Marjorie's betrothal posy, but celestial, as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Nuns' virginity wasn't probed like Alina's gossip woes. It was assumed, their lives a testament to purity, unlike Cecilia's market spark or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, sealed in cloister walls sharper than Sybil's fairground quips. You notice a St. Agnes icon by the altar, tying to the Church's purity doctrine. Yet Alina's serene glance at the cross, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at peace beneath the vow, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The chapter house's candles dim, and you feel the vow's sanctity, Alina's virginity, a spiritual crown in the convent's embrace, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her resolve, her purity a divine gift, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but cloistered, a balance of surrender and strength. The chant fades, and you linger by the stone, wondering how Alina wears her bridal crown, and what truths medieval nuns held in the wax-scented, star-streaked medieval morn. You're seated on a hard bench in a medieval manor's great hall, the air heavy with the scent of damp rushes and the faint scratch of a clerk's quill on parchment, as a crowd murmurs around a makeshift court. A woman stands before a stern "Lord," her kirtle clutched tight, her voice wavering as she defends her chastity against a suitor's accusations, each word a plea to save her honor. You're not here to fetch ale, you're delving into legal disputes over virginity, where medieval court cases turned purity into a battleground, a public reckoning fiercer than Alina's convent vows or the village gossip we heard at Ellen's well. The village's morning hum fades beyond the hall's stone walls, and you're trying not to shift and creak the bench while you soak in this tense drama, hoping you don't draw the clerk's scowl with a stray cough. Legal disputes over virginity were medieval flashpoints where broken betrothals or slandered reputations spilled into courts, unlike the church's purity doctrine or Marjorie's family pressures. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, ecclesiastical court records like those from the Diocese of Ely show cases where women or their kin sued over claims of defilement, with virginity disputes tied to marriage contracts, dowries or annulments, often requiring testimony or oaths. You're picturing Alina, our novice-turned-betrothed, now facing a court, accused by Thomas's kin of lost honour after a spurned rival's slander, Marjorie's face thunderous as she counters with Alina's purity oath. You'd probably knock over a candle, muttering about needing a medieval lawyer app, but Marjorie's defence, like Matilda's dowry scrutiny over Eleanor, hinges on Alina's chastity, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia. Revels? Here's a quirky tidbit. Some courts allowed women to hold a truth stone, a smooth pebble blessed by a priest, during testimony, believing it grew warm if they lied, a charm clunkier than Alina's bridal crown. Picture Alina gripping one, only for it to slip from her sweaty palm, sparking a mock stone's verdict from a bystander. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval stress ball gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred oracles, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these disputes were fair or rigged against women, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they gave women a voice, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think courts favoured men, amplifying gossip, like Ellen's well-side barbs, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's trembling voice suggests she's fighting an uphill battle, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the Lord's table, where the clerk scribbles Alina's plea, her oath echoing her betrothal. Vow, but raw, like Agnes's midwife inquiries, but public, sharper than Ellen's, Roman Subura, whispers but cloaked in law. The humour hits when a witness, a nosy neighbour, trips on the rushes, her courtly stumble lightening the mood, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Disputes weren't just peasant affairs. Noble women like Eleanor faced annulment suits, unlike Alina's village oaths or Cecilia's market spark, with virginity a legal stake as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's family, grillings or the Trottulus theories, courts demanded proof, oaths, witnesses, or rare midwife checks like Agnes, spreading shame like Sybil's fairground quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve. You notice a St. Agnes icon by the Lord, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet Alina's defiant glance at Thomas, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at resilience beneath the accusation, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The hall's torches dim, and you feel the court's weight, Alina's virginity a legal thread in a tangle of honour and law. Unlike the Bacchanalia's revels, or Alina's harvest songs, you're starting to see her grit, her purity a shield against slander's blade, like Isabel's sanctity vow but fiercer, a balance of truth and fear. The clerk's quill pauses and you linger by the bench, wondering how Alina faces the truth. Stone's heat, and what truths medieval women defended in the rush-strewn, star-streaked medieval morn. You're crouched in the dim glow of a medieval wise woman's hut, the air thick with the scent of smouldering sage and the faint rustle of dried herbs hanging from the rafters. A clay bowl holds knotted cords and petals, and a young woman whispers, her fears, her kirtle trembling, as the wise woman chants softly, weaving a spell to guard her chastity. You're not here for a headache cure. You're trying magical charms meant to prove or protect virginity, where medieval women sought mystical aid against gossip's sting or legal disputes like Alina's court battle, a shadowy practice beyond Eleanor's inspections or the church's purity doctrine. The village's nighttime hum seeps through the wattle walls, and you're trying not to knock over a vial of rosewater while you delve into this enchanted ritual, hoping you don't fumble a charm and spark a witchy quip. Magical charms were medieval women's secret arsenal, blending faith and folklore to shield or affirm chastity, unlike the Trotula's medical theories or Marjorie's betrothal oaths. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 14th century, folklore collections like those in the Malleus Maleficarum note women using charms, knotted cords, herbal amulets to protect virginity or prove it in disputes, though church records condemned such acts as superstition as seen in diocesan trials. You're picturing Alina, our slandered betrothed, clutching a cord braided with vervain, her eyes fixed on the wise woman, Agnes, our midwife reborn, chanting to bind her honor against Ellen's Wellside whispers. You'd probably tangle the cord, muttering about needing a medieval spell check app, but Alina's charm, like Eleanor's myrtle crown, seeks to shield her purity, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some charms involved a virgin's thread, wool spun under a new moon, believed to glow if tied by a true maiden, a mystical test flashier than Alina's truth stone. Picture Alina wrapping one, only for a moth to nibble it, sparking a mock moon's mischief from Agnes. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval glow stick gone buggy, unlike Rome's sacred amulets, but not those crocodile dung potions. Thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these charms were empowering or risky, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they gave women agency, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think they invited accusations of witchcraft, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's tight grip on the vervain cord suggests she's banking on magic's shield, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the bowl, where Agnes scatters rose petals, her chant a whisper of protection, like her midwife inquiries, but otherworldly, echoing Ellen's Roman subura, cunning but softer. The humor hits when a spark from the sage pops, its fiery blessing startling Alina like Maud's churchyard tumble. Charms weren't mainstream, like Alina's betrothal posy or Eleanor's inspections. They were covert, sought by women like Cecilia facing gossip sharper than Zibel's fairground quips, or Alina dodging court slander as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's family grillings or the Trotula's theories, these spells were private, whispered in huts, not halls, risking church wrath unlike Sabina's Roman divorce nerve. You notice a St. Agnes charm by the hearth tying to the church's purity doctrine. Yet Agnes's gentle glance at Alina, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at empathy beneath the spell, unlike Rome's subura trades. The hut's fire dims, and you feel the charm's allure. Alina's virginity, a fragile spark guarded by magic's veil, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her hope, her purity, a secret shielded from village tongues, like Isabel's sanctity vow but wilder, a balance of faith and fear. The shutters creak, and you linger by the bowl, wondering how Alina trusts Agnes's vervain, and what truths medieval women sought in the sage-scented, star-streaked medieval night. You're perched on a splintered stool in a medieval village tavern, the air thick with the scent of sour ale, and the faint crackle of a hearth fire casting shadows on rough timber walls. Around a scarred table, families haggle over a betrothal, their voices sharp as they tally livestock land, and a bride's worth, each coin weighed against her purity. You're not here to pour ale, you're assessing the economic impact of virginity, where medieval bride prices hinged on a woman's chastity, a practical stake that drove Alina's vervain charms and Eleanor's courtly contracts, tying honour to wealth in a world of hard bargains. The village's evening hum drifts through the open door, and you're trying not to knock over a clay mug while you soak in this tense negotiation, hoping you don't spill and get roped into the deal. Virginity in medieval times wasn't just a moral badge. It was a financial asset, inflating bride prices to secure alliances or survival, unlike the magical charms of Agnes's hut or the Church's purity doctrine. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, manorial records like those from the English estate of Glastonbury show bride prices, cash or goods paid by grooms to brides' families, were higher for virgins, ensuring clear inheritance and family honour, as seen in marriage agreements. You're picturing Alina, our charm-wielding betrothed, her value touted by Marjorie as pure as new wool, her dowry of 2 cows and a plough boosted by her chastity, Thomas's kin nodding warily. You'd probably fumble a coin muttering about needing a medieval Venmo app. But Marjorie's boast, like Matilda's dowry parchment for Eleanor, ties Alina's virginity to economic gain, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some families gifted a maiden's purse, a coin pouch embroidered with lilies, to seal the bride price, believed to lock her purity's value, a wallet fancier than Alina's truth stone. Picture Marjorie presenting one only for a seam to split, spilling pennies like a mock, leaky virtue. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval piggy bank gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred offerings, but not those crocodile dung potions. Thank the saints. Historians still argue whether virginity's economic role empowered women or commodified them, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it gave families leverage, like Marjorie's court defense. Others think it reduced women to assets, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the Church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's stiff nod as Marjorie counts cows suggests she's feeling her price's weight, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the table, where Thomas's father, John, offers 3 sheep, his voice probing. Alina's unblemished name, like Ellen's well-side gossip, but with coin at stake, echoing Agnes's midwife discretion, but louder. The humour hits when a drunk patron knocks a mug, his ale dowry splash, lightening the mood, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Bride prices weren't just peasant deals. Noble women like Eleanor fetched vast lands, unlike Alina's village, oaths or Cecilia's market spark, with virginity a currency as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Alina's vervain spells or Eleanor's inspections, bride prices were public, negotiated like Sybil's fairground deals, or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, tying families to wealth beyond Marjorie's family grillings, or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on Marjorie's wrist, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet Alina's shy glance at Thomas, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at love beneath the tally, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The tavern's fire dims, and you feel the bride prices pull. Alina's virginity a coin in the village's market, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her place, her purity a ledger entry for kin, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but earthier, a balance of value and heart. The shutters creak, and you linger by the table, wondering how Alina bears her purse's weight, and what truths medieval women hid behind their dowries in the ale-scented, star-streaked medieval night. You're standing in the bustling heart of a medieval village square, the air sharp with the scent of fresh-baked bread, and the tense murmur of a crowd gathered around a wooden pillory, where a woman in a tattered kirtle stands, her head bowed. Under jeers and flung mud, torches flicker, casting harsh shadows on faces twisted with scorn, their voices accusing her of lost chastity, each taunt a wound deeper than a blade. You're not here to buy a loaf. You're facing the public shaming risks for doubted purity, where medieval women endured brutal consequences when their virginity was questioned, a fate tied to Alina's bride price fears and Eleanor's legal disputes, rooted in a world of unforgiving honor. The village's morning hum pulses around you, and you're trying not to slip on muddy cobbles while you soak in this grim spectacle, hoping you don't catch a stray clod and join the crowd's target. Public shaming was a medieval hammer, crushing women's reputations when their chastity was doubted, amplifying the gossip we heard at Ellen's Well or Marjorie's family pressures. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 14th century, ecclesiastical court records like those from the Diocese of York show women accused of unchastity faced public penance, standing in church squares or wearing sackcloth, as punishment for rumoured or proven lapses, often tied to broken betrothals or slander, as noted in parish registers. You're picturing Alina, our vervain charmed betrothed, imagined in the pillory, her lily girdle mocked by Ellen's crowd, Marjorie's face, ashen as whispers of Alina's tainted honour spread. You'd probably fumble a step, muttering about needing a medieval PR app, but Ellen's jeers, like Matilda's scrutiny over Eleanor, shred Alina's worth, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some shamed women were forced to wear a sinner's cap, a paper crown scrawled with doves, marking their lost purity, a headpiece crueler than Alina's maiden's purse. Picture Alina donning one, only for a gust to blow it off, sparking a mock wind's mercy from a child. You chuckle nervously, imagining it's a medieval dunce cap gone rogue, unlike Rome's public brands, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether shaming was justice or cruelty, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it enforced community norms like Marjorie's bride price boasts. Others think it scapegoated women, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's imagined slump in the pillory suggests she's crushed by the crowd's wrath, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the pillory, where the woman's accuser, a spurned suitor, spits venom, his tale of her loose ways echoing Ellen's well-side barbs, but amplified, like Agnes's court testimony, but vicious, sharper than Rome's Subura whispers. The humour hits when a stray goose waddles through, its holy waddles scattering. Mudflingers like Maud's churchyard tumble. Shaming wasn't just for peasants. Noble women like Eleanor risked exile or convent confinement, unlike Alina's betrothal posy or Cecilia's market spark, with purity's loss as dire as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Alina's vervain, charms, or Eleanor's inspections, shaming was public, a spectacle like Sybil's fairground quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, shredding lives beyond Marjorie's family grillings or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on a jeerer's neck, tying to the church's purity doctrine. Yet the woman's defiant glance, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at resilience beneath the mud, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The square's din softens as the crowd thins, and you feel shaming's brutal weight, Alina's imagined virginity, a tattered flag in the village's scorn, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her pain, her purity, a lost coin under public wrath. Like Isabel's sanctity vow, but rawer, a balance of shame and strength. The church bell tolls and you linger by the pillory, wondering how Alina would face the sinner's cap and what truths medieval women buried in the mud-streaked, star-streaked medieval morn. You're seated in the shadowy nave of a medieval village church, the air heavy with the scent of frankincense and the soft creak of wooden pews as a priest in a cassock paces, his voice stern as he questions a young woman kneeling at the altar. Candlelight flickers on a stone crucifix, casting a solemn glow on her wimple, her hands clasped as she answers in whispers, each word weighed by divine judgment. You're not here to confess a sin. You're uncovering the clergy's oversight in chastity verification, where medieval priests played a pivotal role in probing women's virginity, a sacred duty tied to Alina's public shaming risks and Eleanor's legal disputes rooted in the church's iron grip. The village's morning hush seeps through the stained glass windows, and you're trying not to shift and squeak the pew while you soak in this grave interrogation, hoping you don't knock over a prayer book and earn a holy glare. Priests in medieval times weren't just spiritual shepherds. They were gatekeepers of purity, their oversight of chastity, a divine mandate, unlike the economic bride prices we saw with Marjorie or Agnes' magical charms. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, canon law, as outlined in the Decretum, Gratiani empowered priests to investigate women's chastity in marriage disputes or betrothal preparations, often through confessions or public oaths, as noted in diocesan records. You're picturing Alina, our slandered betrothed, kneeling before Father Anselm, her voice faltering as he asks about her virtuous conduct with Thomas. Marjorie's eyes boring into her from a nearby pew. You'd probably fumble a rosary, muttering about needing a medieval lie detector app. But Anselm's questions, like Matilda's scrutiny over Eleanor, bind Alina's virginity to God's law, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some priests used a holy quill dipped in blessed ink to record confessions, believing its script darkened if a woman lied about her chastity, a scribble test odder than Alina's maiden's purse. Picture Anselm wielding one, only for a drop to blotch the page, sparking a mock ink of sin from a choir boy. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval truth pen gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred oracles, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether clergy oversight was rigorous or symbolic, like Gillian's Dove brooch flirtations. Some say it enforced moral order, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think it was performative, relying on fear more than proof. unlike Joan's Yellow Hood Defiance or Zara's Foreign Tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers ever present. You're not sure, but Alina's trembling hands suggest she's dreading Anselm's quill, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the altar, where Anselm's voice probes Alina's nightly walks, like Ellen's well-side, gossip but cloaked in Latin, echoing Agnes's midwife discretion, but sterner, sharper than Rome's Subura whispers. The humour hits when a candle sputters its divine hiccup, startling a pew-sitter like Maud's churchyard tumble. Clergy oversight wasn't just for peasants. Noble women like Eleanor faced bishops in annulment cases, unlike Alina's betrothal posy or Cecilia's market spark, with chastity a divine stake as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's family grillings or the Trotula's theories, priests' probes were formal, sealed in confessionals or courts, spreading fear like Sybil's fairground quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve. You notice a St. Agnes icon by the altar tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet Alina's fleeting glance at a stained glass Mary, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at hope beneath the Inquisition, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The nave's candles dim, and you feel the clergy's weight, Alina's virginity a scroll under Anselm's gaze, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her strain, her purity a divine ledger, like Isabel's sanctity vow but holier, a balance of faith and fear. The morning bells toll and you linger by the pew, wondering how Alina faces the holy quill's ink, and what truths medieval women confessed in the incense-wreathed, star-streaked medieval morn. You're tucked into the smoky gloom of a medieval village elder's hut, the air thick with the scent of burning hazel twigs and the faint rustle of dried leaves scattered on a dirt floor. A flickering rushlight casts eerie shadows as a wise woman mutters, holding a curious bundle of herbs and stones, guiding a nervous girl through a strange ritual to test her purity. You're not here for a cough remedy. You're testing bizarre folklore myths about virginity detection, where medieval villagers whispered of odd signs to prove chastity, a world of superstition beyond Father Anselm's clergy oversight or Alina's legal disputes. The village's evening hush seeps through the wattle walls, and you're trying not to knock over a clay pot while you delve into this peculiar lore, hoping you don't sneeze and ruin the mystical vibe. Folklore tests for virginity were medieval. Europe's blend of magic and suspicion, whispered in huts more than churches. Unlike the church's purity doctrine or Marjorie's bride price haggles, a mainstream fact grounds us. By the 14th century, folklore collections like those in the Gesta Romanorum describe rural beliefs in virginity tests, plants wilting, animals reacting, or objects changing to confirm a woman's chastity, though rarely documented in official records, unlike court cases. You're picturing Alina, our court-defended betrothed, clutching a sprig of rue, her eyes wide as the elder. Old Meg claims it'll curl if her purity's false, Marjorie hovering like a market hawk. You'd probably drop the rue, muttering about needing a medieval Mythbuster app, but Alina's test, like Agnes's vervain charms, seeks to shield her honour. A far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers believed a virgin could walk past a beehive without being stung, a buzzing test wilder than Alina's holy quill. Picture Alina tiptoeing by, only for a bee to buzz her nose, sparking a mock hive's doubt from Meg. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval capture gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred omens, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these tests were taken seriously or were mere folklore, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they held sway in villages like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think they were tales, rarely practiced, unlike Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's tense grip on the rue suggests she's wary of its verdict. Unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter, you edge closer to the fire, where Meg waves the rue over a stone, her chant a mix of prayer and riddle, like Ellen's well-side gossip, but enchanted, echoing Agnes's moonwater rinse, but earthier. The humour hits when a twig snaps in the fire, its truth crack startling Alina, like Maud's churchyard tumble. These tests weren't formal like Anselm's confessions or Eleanor's inspections. They were village law, whispered by women like Cecilia, dodging Ellen's slander, or Alina fearing court shame, as potent as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's family grillings or the Trotula's theories, folklore tests were informal, risking ridicule like Sybil's fairground quips, or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, yet trusted in huts beyond church reach. You notice a St. Agnes, charmed by the pot, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet Meg's knowing glance at Alina, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at skepticism beneath the ritual. Unlike Rome's Subura trades, the hut's rushlight dims, and you feel folklore's pull. Alina's virginity a leaf in the village's mystic winds, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her unease, her purity a gamble on Rue's curl, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but weirder, a balance of trust and tale. The fire's glow fades, and you linger by the pot, wondering how Alina faces Meg's sprig, and what truths medieval women sought in the hazel-scented, star-streaked medieval night. You're seated at a weathered trestle table in a medieval village's communal barn, the air thick with the scent of straw and the faint tang of smoked meat hanging from the rafters. Around you, families barter over a dowry, their voices sharp, as they tally land, cloth, and a bride's worth, each offer hinging on her purity like coins on a scale. You're not here to stack hay, you're bartering in dowry negotiations, where medieval women's virginity was leveraged to boost marriage. Deals, a high-stakes game tied to Alina's folklore tests and Eleanor's bride price values, rooted in a world where honor meant wealth. The village's morning hum drifts through the open door, and you're trying not to knock over a clay flagon while you soak in this tense haggle, hoping you don't misjudge a bid and spark a family feud. Dowry negotiations were medieval marriages, marketplace where a woman's chastity inflated her family's bargaining power, unlike the mystical rue tests of old Meg or Father Anselm's clergy probes. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, manorial records like those from the English estate of Bury St. Edmunds show dowries, goods or land, given by the bride's family to the groom were larger for virgins, ensuring attractive matches and family prestige, as noted in betrothal contracts. You're picturing Alina, our rue-clutching betrothed, her dowry of a cow and linen touted by Marjorie as sealed by her spotless name. Thomas's kin eyeing her like a market prize. You'd probably miscount the linen, muttering about needing a medieval spreadsheet app, but Marjorie's boast, like Matilda's sapphire ring for Eleanor, leverages Alina's virginity for a richer deal, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some families offered a purity bolt, a cloth embroidered with doves as a dowry token believed to fray if the bride's chastity was false, a textile test fancier than Alina's virgin's thread. Picture Marjorie unfurling one, only for a moth hole to appear, sparking a mock dove's escape from Thomas's aunt. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval warranty gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred tokens, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether dowry leverage empowered women or objectified them, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it gave families clout, like Marjorie's court defence. Others think it priced women stricter than Jones. Yellow Hood Defiance or Zara's Foreign Tales, with the Church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's stiff posture as Marjorie haggles suggests she's feeling her dowry's weight, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the table, where Thomas's father, John, demands extra wool, his voice probing. Alina's clean reputation, like Ellen's well-side gossip, but with goods at stake, echoing Agnes's midwife discretion, but louder. The humour hits when a stray chicken clucks under the table, its feathered bid scattering papers like Maud's churchyard tumble. Dowries weren't just peasant affairs. Noble women like Eleanor brought vast estates, unlike Alina's betrothal. Posy or Cecilia's market spark with Virginity, a deal-maker as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Alina's rue tests or Eleanor's inspections, dowry talks were public, like Sybil's fairground deals or Sabina's Roman divorce, nerve tying families to wealth beyond Marjorie's family grillings or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on Marjorie's neck, tying to the Church's purity doctrine. Yet Alina's shy glance at Thomas, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at love beneath the barter, unlike Rome's subura trades. The barn's fire dims, and you feel the dowry's pull. Alina's virginity a bargaining chip in the village's ledger, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her role, her purity a coin for kin, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but plainer, a balance of worth and heart. The door creaks and you linger by the table, wondering how Alina bears the purity bolts weave, and what truths medieval women hid behind their dowries in the straw-scented, star-streaked medieval morn. You're tiptoeing through the dimly lit corridor of a medieval manor, the air heavy with the scent of beeswax candles and the faint rustle of linen curtains shielding a bridal chamber. Muffled laughter and the clink of goblets spill from a feast. Hall below, but here a hushed tension lingers as kin await proof of a bride's chastity from the wedding night, their whispers sharp with expectation. You're not here to serve mead, you're examining post-nuptial chastity evidence where medieval wedding nights were scrutinized for signs of virginity, a ritual tied to Alina's dowry negotiations and Eleanor's legal disputes, rooted in a world where bedsheets held truths louder than vows. The village's nighttime hum fades beyond the stone walls, and you're trying not to creak a floorboard while you soak in this intimate drama, hoping you don't bump a candlestick and alert the nosy kin. Wedding night proofs were medieval marriage's final test, where a bride's virginity was judged by physical signs, unlike the folklore rue tests of Old Meg or Father Anselm's clergy probes. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, customary practices, as noted in legal texts like the Coutume de Beauvaisis, describe families inspecting bedsheets for blood as proof of a bride's chastity after consummation, especially among nobles to confirm dowry agreements or inheritance rights. You're picturing Alina, our dowry-leveraged bride, now wed to Thomas, her kirtle shed, as Marjorie and Thomas's kin hover outside, awaiting a sheet's verdict, their eyes as keen as market scales. You'd probably trip on a rug muttering about needing a medieval privacy app. But Marjorie's vigil, like Matilda's dowry scrutiny for Eleanor, hinges on Alina's purity, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some families waved a maiden's cloth, a white sheet tied to a pole, outside the chamber window to signal success, a banner bolder than Alina's purity bolt. Picture Marjorie hoisting one, only for a gust to tangle it in a tree, sparking a mock virtue's flight from a drunk guest. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval flag of awkward triumph, unlike Rome's sacred tokens, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these proofs were universal or elite-focused, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they were widespread, like Marjorie's betrothal boasts. Others think they were noble customs, less common among peasants, like Cecilia. Unlike Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's imagined blush behind the curtain suggests she's dreading the sheet's tail, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the chamber door, where a maid emerges, her voice low as she hands Marjorie a folded cloth like Ellen's well-side gossip, but hushed, echoing Agnes's midwife discretion, but public, sharper than Rome's Subura whispers. The humour hits when a cousin trips, his eager spy stumble, lightening the mood, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Proofs weren't just noble, village weddings like Alina's often followed suit, unlike Cecilia's market spark or Hilda's childbirth prayers, with sheets a final seal on dowries like Marjorie's maiden's purse. Unlike Alina's rue tests, or Eleanor's inspections, wedding night proofs were immediate, a family affair louder than Sybil's fairground quips, or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, binding kin beyond Marjorie's family grillings, or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on Marjorie's wrist, tying to the church's purity doctrine. Yet Alina's imagined sigh behind the curtain, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at relief beneath the scrutiny, unlike Rome's Subura trades. This corridor's candles dim, and you feel the proof's weight. Alina's virginity, a bedsheet story for kin and village, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her ordeal, her purity a public scroll, like Isabel's sanctity vow but raw, a balance of duty and dread. The feast's din softens and you linger by the door, wondering how Alina faces the maiden's cloth and what truth's medieval brides hid in the linen-draped, star-streaked medieval night. You're settled on a rush mat in a medieval village church's side chapel, the air warm with the scent of melting wax and the soft hum of a priest's voice reciting tales of saintly women, their stories glowing like the candles flickering on a small altar. Women in kirtles lean close, their faces rapt as the priest weaves legends of virgin martyrs, each word a hymn to chastity's triumph over sin. You're not here to polish pews, you're hearing tales glorifying chastity, where medieval virgin martyrs' legends inspired and pressured women like Alina, reinforcing the wedding night proofs and Eleanor's dowry stakes with divine heroines. The village's evening hum fades beyond the stone walls, and you're trying not to shift and rustle the rushes while you soak in this sacred storytelling, hoping you don't yawn and earn a pious frown. Virgin martyr legends were medieval Christianity's shining beacons, exalting chastity as a path to sainthood, unlike the practical bride prices of Marjorie's haggles or old Meg's folklore tests. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, hagiographies like the Golden Legend by Jacobus de Voragine celebrated saints like Agnes and Cecilia, whose preserved virginity defied persecution. Their stories preached in sermons to urge women toward purity, as noted in liturgical texts. You're picturing Alina, our bedsheet-tested bride, listening wide-eyed as Father Anselm recounts St. Agnes's refusal of suitors, her chastity a heavenly crown. Marjorie nodding as if Alina's own purity mirrors the saints. You'd probably drop a prayer bead, muttering about needing a medieval saint app. But Anselm's tale, like Matilda's scrutiny over Eleanor, elevates Alina's virginity to divine, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some churches gave girls Agnes ribbons, strips blessed on her feast day, believed to shield chastity if worn, a holy accessory weirder than Alina's maiden's cloth. Picture Alina tying one, only for it to snag on a pew, sparking a mock saint's tug from a neighbor. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval purity bracelet gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred amulets, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these legends inspired or burdened women, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they empowered, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think they set impossible standards, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the Church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's rapt gaze suggests she's awed by Agnes's crown, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the altar, where Anselm's voice paints Cecilia's martyrdom, her chastity a shield against lust, like Ellen's well-side gossip, but celestial, echoing Agnes's midwife discretion, but glorified, softer than Rome's Subura whispers. The humour hits when a candle drips wax, its saintly tear startling a dozing girl like Maud's churchyard.
Tumble.
Legends weren't just for peasants. Noble women like Eleanor heard them at court chapels, unlike Alina's betrothal posy or Cecilia's market spark, with chastity a divine ideal as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Alina's wedding, night sheets, or Eleanor's inspections, these tales were preached, shaping hearts like Sybil's fairground quips, or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, urging purity beyond Marjorie's family grillings, or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes icon by the candles tying to the Church's purity doctrine. Yet Alina's soft sigh, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at yearning beneath the saint's tale, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The chapel's glow dims, and you feel the legend's pull, Alina's virginity a spark in the saint's radiant shadow, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her reverence, a purity a quest for Agnes's crown, like Isabel's sanctity vow but loftier, a balance of awe and pressure. The Vespers bell tolls, and you linger by the rushes wondering how Alina carries Cecilia's tale and what truths medieval women drew from martyrs in the wax-scented, star-streaked medieval dusk. You're skulking through the bustling corridors of a medieval manor house, the air rich with the scent of fresh-baked bread and the faint clatter of pewter dishes from a kitchen below. Servants dart past, their eyes sharp as they carry linens, or Polish candlesticks whispering about a young woman's late-night wanderings, each glance a potential report to her kin. You're not here to scrub pots. You're dodging household spies, where medieval servants reported on a woman's behavior to guard her chastity, a covert watch tied to Alina's virgin martyr tales and Eleanor's wedding night proofs, rooted in a world where every step was watched. The village's evening hum fades beyond the stone walls, and you're trying not to creak a floorboard while you navigate this web of surveillance, hoping you don't bump a servant and spark a tattler's tale. Household spies were medieval, honour's silent sentinels, with servants tasked to monitor women's chastity, amplifying the pressures of Marjorie's family grillings or Anselm's clergy probes. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, household accounts, like those of the Paston family, show noble and wealthy families employing servants to observe daughters or brides-to-be, reporting any unseemly conduct to ensure marriageable purity, as noted in legal disputes over betrothals. You're picturing Alina, our saint-inspired betrothed, slipping through the manor as a guest, her kirtle catching on a door as a maid. Joan eyes her with a knowing smirk, ready to tell Marjorie of her chat with Thomas. You'd probably knock over a broom muttering about needing a medieval stealth app, but Joan's watch, like Matilda's scrutiny over Eleanor, guards Alina's virginity, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some servants tied a watcher's thread to door latches, believing it snapped if a woman snuck out, a sneaky trap weirder than Alina's Agnes ribbon. Picture Joan rigging one only for a cat to break it, sparking a mock midnight rogue from a cook. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval alarm system gone feline, unlike Rome's sacred seals, but not those crocodile dung potions. Thank the saints. Historians still argue whether servant spying was effective or intrusive, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it protected family honor, like Marjorie's dowry deals. Others think it bred distrust, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's cautious step past Joan suggests she's dodging a spy's report, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the kitchen, where Joan gossips with a scullion, her tale of Alina's lingering glance at Thomas sharp as Ellen's well-side barbs, like Agnes's court testimony, but domestic, softer than Rome's subura whispers. The humour hits when a pot lid clangs, its spy's gong startling Joan mid-tale, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Spying wasn't just noble. Peasant households like Marjorie's used maids to watch Alina, unlike Cecilia's market spark or Hilda's childbirth prayers, with chastity a household stake as vital as Eleanor's bedsheet proofs. Unlike Alina's martyr tales or Marjorie's dowry haggles, servant reports were daily, a web of eyes like Sybil's fairground quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, binding women beyond Anselm's confessions or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on Joan's apron, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet Alina's quick duck behind a tapestry, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at defiance beneath the watch, unlike Rome's subura trades. The corridors, torches dim, and you feel the spy's net. Alina's virginity a secret hunted by servant eyes, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her stealth, her purity, a shadow under household watch, like Isabel's sanctity vow but sneakier, a balance of caution and courage. The kitchen din softens and you linger by the door, wondering how Alina evades Joan's thread, and what truths medieval women hid in the bread-scented, star-streaked medieval dusk. You're nestled on a straw-stuffed bench in a medieval village cottage, the air warm with the scent of baking barley bread and the soft creak of a loom humming in the corner. A mother sits across from her daughter, her kirtle patched but neat, her voice firm yet tender as she teaches lessons on guarding purity, her hands gesturing like a weaver shaping a tale. You're not here to spin wool. You're learning how girls were taught chastity, where medieval mothers and kin instilled the value of virginity, a daily education tied to Alina's household spies and Eleanor's martyr legends, rooted in a world where purity shaped a girl's fate. The village's evening hum drifts through the shuttered window, and you're trying not to knock over a clay cup while you soak in this intimate schooling, hoping you don't fidget, and earn a maternal scowl. Chastity education was a medieval girl's lifelong curriculum woven into daily life to prepare her for marriage or convent, unlike the public shaming at Ellen's pillory or Marjorie's dowry deals. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, conduct manuals like the Book of the Knight of the Tower advised mothers to teach daughters modesty and chastity through stories, prayers and rules, with parish records noting such lessons in preparation for betrothals. You're picturing Alina, our spy-dodging betrothed, as a younger girl listening to Marjorie recount St. Cecilia's purity. Her mother's warning about straying eyes, as sharp as a market pitch. You'd probably spill the cup, muttering about needing a medieval parenting app. But Marjorie's lesson, like Matilda's training for Eleanor, molds Alina's virginity, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some mothers gave girls purity pebbles, smooth stones etched with crosses, to carry as reminders to stay chaste, a pocket talisman, odder than Alina's watcher's thread. Picture Marjorie handing one to Alina, only for it to slip into the bread dough, sparking a mock-baked virtue jest. You chuckle, imagining it's a medieval fidget spinner gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred charms, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether chastity education empowered girls or constrained them, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it gave agency through knowledge, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think it enforced fear, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's attentive nod suggests she's absorbing Marjorie's words, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the hearth, where Marjorie weaves a tale of a fallen maiden shamed, her voice low like Ellen's well-side gossip, but nurturing, echoing Agnes's midwife discretion, but homelier, softer than Rome's Subura whispers. The humour hits when a spark pops, its saintly nudge startling Alina, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Education wasn't just maternal. Noble women like Eleanor learned from governesses, unlike Alina's betrothal posy or Cecilia's market spark, with chastity a lesson as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Alina's martyr tales or Eleanor's bedsheet proofs, these teachings were private, shaping girls like Sybil's fairground quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, guiding them beyond Marjorie's dowry haggles or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on Marjorie's wrist, tying to the church's purity doctrine. Yet Alina's curious glance at the door, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at youth beneath the lesson. Unlike Rome's Subura trades, the cottage's fire dims, and you feel the lesson's weight. Alina's virginity, a seed planted by Marjorie's tales, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her growth, her purity a taut shield, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but humbler, a balance of duty and wonder. The shutters creak, and you linger by the loom, wondering how Alina holds her purity pebble, and what truths medieval girls learned in the bread-scented, star-streaked medieval dusk. You're perched on a creaky bench in a medieval port tavern, the air thick with the briny scent of the nearby river and the warm tang of spiced wine steaming in clay mugs. Around you, travellers, a swarthy Genoese merchant, a veiled Andalusian trader, swap tales of distant lands, their voices weaving customs of chastity checks that clash or echo the village ways, their gestures lively as the fires crackle. You're not here to mend nets. You're comparing foreign customs on virginity checks, where outsiders' views shed light on medieval Europe's practices, a broader lens on Alina's chastity lessons, and Eleanor's wedding night proofs, rooted in a world of global exchange. The village's evening hum fades beyond the timber walls, and you're trying not to knock over your mug while you soak in this worldly chatter, hoping you don't mispronounce a foreign word and spark a trader's jest. Foreign customs of virginity. Czechs were medieval Europe's mirror, reflecting or refracting local obsessions with chastity. Unlike Marjorie's maternal teachings or Old Meg's folklore tests, a mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, trade records like those from the Hanseatic League show merchants from Byzantium, Al-Andalus, and beyond visiting Europe. Their accounts of chastity practices like oaths, rituals, or dowry, ties influencing local views as noted in chronicles like Ibn Battuta's Travels. You're picturing Alina, our pebble-taught betrothed, imagined listening as a Genoese trader, Marco, describes Byzantine brides swearing chastity on icons, Marjorie's eyes narrowing at the pagan flair compared to Alina's village oaths. You'd probably spill your wine, muttering about needing a medieval translator app. But Marco's tale, like Matilda's dowry scrutiny for Eleanor, frames Alina's virginity in a wider world, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Andalusian traders claimed a bride's henna'd hands stayed vibrant if she was chaste, a dye test flashier than Alina's purity pebble. Picture Marco mimicking the pattern, only for his sleeve to dip in wine, sparking a mock stained honor from a barmaid. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval tattoo gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred tokens, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether foreign customs shaped or shocked European practices, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they enriched local rituals, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think they were dismissed as exotic, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's imagined curiosity suggests she's intrigued by the henna's glow, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You lean closer to the table, where an Andalusian trader, Fatima, describes dowry veils inspected for purity, her voice soft like Ellen's, well-side gossip but distant, echoing Agnes, midwife discretion but adorned, warmer than Rome's Subura whispers. The humour hits when a drunk sailor slurs a toast to Byzantine brides, his mug toppling like Maud's churchyard tumble. Foreign customs weren't just tales. Noblewomen like Eleanor heard them at court, unlike Alina's betrothal posy, or Cecilia's market spark, with chastity a universal stake as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Alina's bedsheet proofs or Marjorie's family grillings, these customs were shared in ports, broadening views like Sybil's fairground, quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, challenging local norms beyond Anselm's confessions or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on a barmaid's neck, tying to the church's purity doctrine. Yet Fatima's knowing glance at Marco, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at shared humanity beneath the customs, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The tavern's fire dims, and you feel the customs pull. Alina's virginity a thread in a global tapestry, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her world, her purity a local note in a worldly song, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but broader, a balance of tradition and wonder. The shutters creak, and you linger by the bench, wondering how Alina weighs the henna's tale and what truths medieval women gleaned from foreign chastity in the wine-scented, star-streaked medieval dusk. You're perched on a low stool in a medieval physician's cramped study, the air heavy with the scent of dried herbs and the faint creak of wooden shelves sagging under dusty medical tomes. A curtained alcove hides a nervous woman, her kirtle rustling. As a healer murmurs instructions, their voices low against the hum of a village waking beyond the shuttered window. You're not here for a fever remedy. You're exploring rare clinical virginity tests where medieval medical examinations probed chastity in exceptional cases, a practice more formal than Alina's foreign custom tales, or Eleanor's wedding night proofs, rooted in a world-blending science and suspicion. The village's morning hum drifts through the walls, and you're trying not to knock over a vial of lavender oil while you delve into this clinical mystery, hoping you don't cough and break the delicate hush. Clinical virginity tests were medieval medicine's rare foray into chastity verification, reserved for high-stakes disputes, unlike Marjorie's dowry boasts or Old Meg's rue charms. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, medical texts like De Secretis Mulierum and ecclesiastical court records suggest physicians or midwives conducted physical examinations to confirm virginity in annulment cases or noble betrothals, though such tests were uncommon, as noted in legal proceedings from the Diocese of Canterbury. You're picturing Alina, our henna-curious betrothed, behind the curtain, her breath shaky as a physician. Master Giles assesses her for a disputed dowry claim, Marjorie's eyes sharp outside the alcove. You'd probably fumble a scroll, muttering about needing a medieval health app. But Giles's probe, like Agnes's midwife, checks for Eleanor, tests Alina's purity with clinical precision, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some physicians used a chaste glass, a lens held to candlelight, to check a woman's eyes, believing virgins' pupils stayed steady, a bizarre test weirder than Alina's purity pebble. Picture Giles peering through one, only for a flicker to misalign it, sparking a mock candle's doubt from a servant. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval eye exam gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred mirrors, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether clinical tests were scientific or speculative, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they followed medical texts, like Beatrice's cloistered learning. Others think they were symbolic, rarely conclusive, unlike Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's tense silence behind the curtain suggests she's dreading Giles' verdict, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the alcove, where Giles's voice is calm, his questions about Alina's health discreet, like Ellen's well-side gossip, but learned, echoing Agnes Moonwater. Rinse but formal, sharper than Rome's Subura whispers. The humour hits when a quill rolls off the table. It's scholar's tumble, easing the tension, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Tests weren't routine. Peasants like Cecilia relied on oaths, unlike Alina's court disputes, or Eleanor's bedsheet proofs with clinical exams a last resort as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's family grillings or Sybil's fairground quips, these exams were private, their findings whispered to kin or courts like Sabina's. Roman divorce nerve binding honour beyond Alina's martyr tales or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Cosmas icon by the tomes tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet Giles's steady glance at the curtain, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at professionalism beneath the task, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The studies, candles dim, and you feel the test's gravity, Alina's virginity, a clinical riddle under Giles's lens, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her strain, her purity a medical chart, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but colder, a balance of trust and trial. The shutters creak, and you linger by the shelves, wondering how Alina faces the chased glass, and what truths medieval women hid in the herb-scented, star-streaked medieval morn. You're seated at a worn oak table in a medieval village widow's cottage, the air warm with the scent of fresh-baked oatcakes and the faint creak of a spinning wheel slowing in the corner. Around you, kin and a suitor haggle over a remarriage, their voices measured but probing, weighing a widow's past against her present worth, each word circling her chastity since her first husband's death. You're not here to card wool, you're assessing chastity's role in widow's remarriage, where medieval second unions hinged on a woman's perceived purity, a scrutiny tied to Alina's clinical tests and Eleanor's dowry deals, rooted in a world balancing honor and pragmatism. The village's evening hum drifts through the shuttered window, and you're trying not to knock over a clay jug while you soak in this delicate negotiation, hoping you don't shift and draw a suitor's wary glance. Widow's remarriage in the medieval times was a practical affair, but chastity remained a quiet factor, shaping their value less rigidly than for maidens like Alina, yet echoing the bride prices of Marjorie's haggles. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 13th century, manorial records like those from the English estate of Ramsay show widows often remarried to secure land or support, with their chaste widowhood, abstinence since widowhood, boosting dowries or social standing, as noted in marriage contracts. You're picturing Marjorie, now a widow after losing Alina's father, her kirtle sombre but neat, her purity since widowhood touted to a miller, John as unblemished as a new veil, her kin nodding like market vendors. You'd probably spill the jug, muttering about needing a medieval dating app, but Marjorie's claim, like Matilda's oversight of Eleanor, leverages her chastity for a better match, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's bacchanalia.
Revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some widows wore chaste cords, black ribbons tied at the waist, to signal fidelity to their late husband, believed to fray, if they strayed, a sombre charm subtler than Alina's chaste glass.
Picture Marjorie adjusting one only for a knot to slip, sparking a mock widow's lapse from a cousin. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval Fitbit for fidelity gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred tokens, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether chastity mattered less for widows than maidens, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it enhanced remarriage prospects, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Others think practicality trumped purity, looser than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's Saint Anne prayers lingering. You're not sure, but Marjorie's firm nod suggests she's banking on her cords weave, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the table, where John questions Marjorie's quiet widowhood, his voice cautious like Ellen's. Well-side gossip, but contractual, echoing Agnes's midwife discretion, but public, softer than Rome's Subura whispers. The humour hits when a child drops an oatcake, its crumbly dowry scattering laughs like Maud's churchyard tumble. Widow's chastity wasn't probed like Alina's clinical exams or Eleanor's bedsheet proofs. It was assumed or vouched by kin, unlike Cecilia's market spark or Hilda's childbirth prayers, yet vital for dowries like Alina's maiden's purse. Unlike Marjorie's maternal lessons or Sybil's fairground quips, remarriage talks were open, like Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, binding families beyond Anselm's confessions or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on Marjorie's wrist, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet her warm glance at John, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at hope beneath the scrutiny, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The cottage's fire dims, And you feel chastity's shadow, Marjorie's widowhood, a ledger entry for her kin, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her strength, her purity, a quiet claim for a new start, like Isabel's sanctity vow, but earthier, a balance of past and promise. The shutters creak and you linger by the wheel, wondering how Marjorie wears her chaste cord, and what truths medieval widows held in the oatcake-scented, star-streaked medieval dusk. You're weaving through the muddy lanes of a medieval village, the air sharp with the scent of wet thatch and the faint clatter of looms from open cottage doors. Neighbours lean over fences, their eyes tracking a young woman's path, their whispers slicing through the morning mist, each glance a verdict on her purity. You're not here to fetch firewood. You're facing community watchdogs where medieval neighbours policed women's virginity with relentless vigilance, a social net tighter than Marjorie's widow remarriage scrutiny or Alina's clinical exams, rooted in a world where reputation was law. The village's morning hum buzzes around you, and you're trying not to slip on a cobble while you navigate this web of judgment, hoping you don't catch a neighbour's eye and get tangled in their gossip. Community watchdogs were medieval, society's omnipresent eyes, with neighbours policing chastity to uphold village honour, amplifying the pressures of Ellen's well-side whispers or Anselm's clergy probes. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 14th century, manorial court rolls like those from Hale-Azawan show neighbours reporting unchaste behaviour to lords or priests, their accusations sparking fines, shaming, or broken betrothals, as noted in legal disputes over marriage contracts. You're picturing Alina, our remarriage-wary betrothed, hurrying past a cluster of women, their voices low as Ellen, our gossip queen, hints at her too-long chat with Thomas, Marjorie's face, paling at the threat to Alina's dowry. You'd probably trip on a rut, muttering about needing a medieval invisibility app. But Ellen's watch, like Matilda's household spies over Eleanor, traps Alina's virginity in a village gaze, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some neighbours marked suspect homes with a dove's feather, tucked in a doorframe, believed to fall if a woman strayed, a sneaky sign subtler than Marjorie's chaste cord. Picture Ellen planting one, only for a wind to blow it away, sparking a mock feather's flight from a passerby. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval doorbell cam gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred graffiti, but not those crocodile dung potions, thank the saints. Historians still argue whether neighbour policing was communal duty or malicious, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say it preserved order, like Marjorie's dowry haggles. Others think it fueled vendettas, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's quickened step past Ellen suggests she's dodging a feather's fall, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to a fence, where Ellen's voice cuts through, her tale of Alina's dawdling, with Thomas as sharp as her well-side barbs, like Agnes's court testimony, but casual, louder than Rome's Sabura whispers. The humour hits when a stray dog snatches a loaf, its village thief dash, scattering the gossips like Maud's churchyard.
Tumble.
Policing wasn't just peasant. Noble women like Eleanor faced courtiers' stares, unlike Alina's betrothal posy, or Cecilia's market spark, with chastity a community stake as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's widow, talks or Alina's clinical exams, neighbour watchdogs were constant, their eyes like Sybil's fairground quips or Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, shredding reputations beyond Anselm's confessions or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm on Ellen's wrist, tying to the church's purity doctrine, yet Alina's defiant glance back, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at grit beneath the scrutiny, unlike Rome's subura trades. The lane's mist thins, and you feel the watchdog's bite, Alina's virginity a thread in the village's unblinking net, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her caution, her purity, a shield against neighborly claws. Like Isabel's sanctity vow, but raw, a balance of fear and resolve. The church bell tolls, and you linger by the fence, wondering how Alina evades Ellen's dove feather, and what truths medieval women hid in the thatch-scented, star-streaked medieval morn. You're huddled in the shadowy corner of a medieval wise woman's hut, the air thick with the scent of crushed rose petals and the faint bubble of a cauldron simmering over a low fire. A young woman whispers urgently, her kirtle clutched tight, as the wise woman slips her a small vial, her voice low, with secrets to fool prying eyes on a wedding night. You're not here for a love potion, you're uncovering tricks to fake chastity, where medieval women used cunning ruses to pass virginity. Tests, a desperate dodge of Ellen's community watchdogs and Alina's bedsheet proofs, rooted in a world where purity was survival. The village's evening hum seeps through the wattle walls, and you're trying not to knock over a jar of herbs while you delve into this clandestine craft, hoping you don't gasp and betray the hushed plot. False proofs of virginity were medieval. Women's hidden rebellion, using deception to navigate a society obsessed with chastity, unlike Marjorie's dowry haggles or Anselm's clergy probes. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 14th century, medical and legal texts like De Secretis Mulierum hint at women using tricks, blood vials, herbal concoctions, to mimic virginity's signs during wedding night inspections, though rarely admitted in court records as noted in annulment disputes. You're picturing Alina, our neighbour, watched betrothed, clutching a vial of pigeon blood from wise woman Agnes, her eyes darting as she plans to fool Thomas's kin on their wedding night. Marjorie, unaware of the ruse. You'd probably fumble the vial, muttering about needing a medieval sleight of hand app, but Alina's trick, like Eleanor's chaste cord, aims to secure her honour, a far cry from Alina's maypole dances or Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women used virgin's dew, a paste of alum and herbs, applied to mimic physical tightness, a concoction sneakier than Alina's dove feather. Picture Agnes mixing it, only for a cat to swipe the bowl, sparking a mock feline fraud chase. You'd chuckle, imagining it's a medieval cosmetic gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred oils, but not those crocodile dung potions. Thank the saints. Historians still argue whether these tricks were widespread or rare, like Gillian's dove brooch flirtations. Some say they were common survival tactics, like Beatrice's cloistered cunning. Others think they were exceptional, risking exposure, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign tales, with the church's St. Anne prayers looming. You're not sure, but Alina's tight grip on the vial suggests she's betting on Agnes's brew, unlike Edith's ivy-broached banter. You edge closer to the cauldron, where Agnes's hands stir a murky paste, her voice a whisper of instructions, like Ellen's well-side gossip, but covert, echoing Giles's clinical discretion, but shadier, quieter than Rome's subura whispers. The humour hits when a herb jar tips, its spicy slip dusting Alina's kirtle, like Maud's churchyard tumble. Tricks weren't just for peasants. Noble women like Eleanor might use them in annulment fears, unlike Alina's betrothal posy or Cecilia's market spark, with chastity, a facade as vital as Hilda's childbirth prayers. Unlike Marjorie's widow, talks or Sybil's fairground quips, these ruses were secret like Sabina's Roman divorce nerve, defying community eyes beyond Anselm's confessions or the Trotula's theories. You notice a St. Agnes charm by the fire, tying to the Church's purity doctrine. Yet Agnes's sly glance at Alina, like Maud's orchard chatter, hints at solidarity beneath the deceit, unlike Rome's Subura trades. The hut's fire dims, and you feel the trick's daring. Alina's virginity, a crafted illusion in the village's glare, unlike the Bacchanalia's revels or Alina's harvest songs. You're starting to see her courage, her purity, a staged shield, like Isabel's sanctity vow but riskier, a balance of guile and grit. The shutters creak, and you linger by the jars, wondering how Alina wields her pigeon blood, and what truths medieval women hid in the rose-scented, star-streaked medieval dusk. You're reclining on a grassy knoll overlooking a medieval village, the air cool with the scent of damp clover and the faint glow of hearth fires twinkling below, where Alina, Marjorie, and Eleanor rest, their lives woven with the weight of chastity's gaze. Stars blaze above, their light a silent witness to centuries of women navigating purity's maze, each test a thread in a tapestry of honor and survival. You're not just stargazing, you're pondering virginity's medieval legacy, its enduring impact from Alina's false proofs to Eleanor's dowry stakes, a reflection that binds village, manor, and convent in a shared story of scrutiny and strength. The village's nighttime hush cradles you, and you're sinking into the grass, letting these tales settle, wondering how they shaped hearts under this timeless sky, far from Rome's Bacchanalia revels. Virginity's legacy in medieval times wasn't just a personal vow, it was a societal cornerstone shaping marriages, faiths, and fates, unlike the fleeting tricks of Agnes's hut or Ellen's community watchdogs. A mainstream fact grounds us. By the 14th century, ecclesiastical and legal records like those from the Diocese of York show virginity as a linchpin of social order, with checks, oaths, sheets, trials, ensuring dowries, inheritance, and salvation, as noted in chronicles like Froissart's. You're picturing Alina, her pigeon blood vial hidden, her kirtle now a wife's, yet her chastity's shadow lingering. In village whispers, Marjorie's pride echoing Matilda's noble vigilance over Eleanor. You'd probably sigh, wishing for their resilience, but their legacy, like Marjorie's chaste cord, endures in the village's pulse, unlike Alina's maypole dances or Gillian's festive jests. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villages believed a virgin's prayer under a full moon could bless crops, a myth tying chastity to prosperity, sweeter than Alina's dove feather traps. Imagine Alina praying only for a cloud to hide the moon, sparking a mock lunar snub from a neighbor. You'd chuckle, thinking it's a medieval weather app gone rogue, unlike Rome's sacred omens, but not those crocodile dung potions. Thank the saints. Historians still argue whether virginity's legacy was empowering or oppressive, like Beatrice's cloistered vows. Some say it gave women symbolic power, like Cecilia's saintly tales. Others think it chained them to scrutiny, stricter than Joan's yellow hood defiance or Zara's foreign customs, with the Church's St. Anne prayers eternal. You're not sure, but the star's gleam feels like it holds every test. Alina's sheets, Eleanor's sapphire, Marjorie's pebbles, shining on a world of women's grit. You trace the constellations, recalling moments, Alina's rue test, Ellen's well-side barbs, Maud's tumbled oath. The humour hits one last time as you picture Thomas, his blacksmith hands, fumbling Alina's purity bolt, still wooing her past the village's eyes like Gaius's Roman love curse flop. Virginity's legacy was a web, spun through dowries like Marjorie's, trials like Alina's, and tales like Cecilia's, as bold as Eleanor's bedsheet proofs or Hilda's childbirth prayers. It drove tricks, oaths, even neighbourly spies, each a knot in a world where Joan's brothel grit and Maud's orchard dreams defied Ellen's feathers, unlike Rome's Subura trades. These women, Alina, Marjorie, Eleanor, wove chastity's weight into strength, their legacy a starlit song of survival, like Isabel's sanctity vow but fiercer, crafted in courage, not silk. As the night deepens, the stars soften, their glow a gentle veil over the village's quiet roofs, where Alina dreams of her next dance, Marjorie of her next deal. You're safe here, wrapped in the resilience of women who faced quills, sheets and whispers, their strength a quiet warmth in your heart. The Knowles breeze slows, carrying the village's hush into a soothing murmur, and your thoughts drift, heavy with their spark. Let the grass hold you, let the stars guide you, and let these women, Alina's, Eleanor's, Maud's, whisper you into peace. Close your eyes, breathe deep, and sink into the dark, where medieval chastity's legacy sings on, guiding dreams as endless as the sky's starlit, timeless embrace. Sweet dreams.